I did not originally plan to make this video. I thought I was gonna do my little video essay out in the woods and then watch the Summer Hikaru Died on my own time. However, last night I watched the first episode and I was like, I might have to do an in-depth video for each episode of this show. I didn't want to get my expectations up too high, but secretly they were pretty high up, and I think the first episode surpassed them. So I'm just as surprised as you are at this upload. I thought I was moving away from reaction content possibly forever. But here we are. I have already seen this episode. This will not be my immediate live slug reaction, but I figured I can still talk you through my thoughts. And then the following episodes will be live, brand new reaction. I'm not going to be avoiding manga spoilers. I am coming at the show from the angle of being extremely familiar with the manga, so if you want to go into this show spoiler-free, watch somebody else's reaction. Or read the manga. If you're returning, you already know me. If you're new, hi, I'm Bryn. I do media analysis. And today we're watching The Summer Hikaru Died. Let's go. Already the sound design is just absurdly good. That nasty, squishy sound, like, that told me, oh, they're gonna take good care of this adaptation. It was an interesting choice starting with this scene. Hikaru's death and Yoshiki searching for the body. This is something we don't get in the manga until several chapters in. With this adaptation, it seems like they're chopping things up and remixing the order a little bit. And I think that's mostly just to give the viewer more context. We see his shrunken head, we see the mountain god, we see the boob tree. That was so cool. We see Hikaru dying and calling out to Nonuki. In the manga, we have none of that for the first scene. It's just two boys talking, eating ice cream, and then one of them starts to melt. And it's like, what? But you lose some of the shock of that scene, I think, by providing the context. It's a bit of a trade-off, right? I would imagine that for this anime adaptation, they probably wanted to give you a whole lot more context before going into it. Because, unfortunately, I think that's just a byproduct of modern streaming audiences don't necessarily have the attention span nor the time to devote to something if they're not immediately hooked in. And so I imagine whoever's making this show wanted to provide the viewer with a whole lot more context so they know what's going on and might be more interested. You know, there's nothing wrong with showing the scenes out of order, but you do lose out on a lot of the shock factor of that first scene of Yoshiki asking Hikaru if he's a fake. So it's just a trade-off, right? If you want to give the viewer more context, you negate the shock a little bit. If you want to have that shock, you have to risk having a confused viewer. And I think it could have been really powerful if they had started with this scene. Intonation. Sorry, I'm not making fun of it. I think it's very endearing. I love hearing an English word. I really love what the author and the show have done with Hikaru's coloration. He's not just a white-haired kid in Japan and we're supposed to suspend our disbelief and just accept that. He is drawn with specific albinism traits like near colorless irises and red pupils, and he's always got like a bit of a flush on his skin because he's so pale. His dad has those same features as well, or had them. Rest in peace, Indo Kohei. The story never comes out and says he has albinism, but the fact that there's that attention to detail tells me that's the intent. Hikaru is almost a year younger than Yoshiki. They're in the same grade, but Yoshiki's birthday is at the beginning of the school year and Hikaru's is at the end. I love how oppressive the soundscape is. Sound in the manga is completely overwhelming. The cicadas are constant, right? And in the show here, they have the cicadas going nonstop until you reach the point where you don't even register them. And then when the cicadas cut out, the silence becomes oppressive. and the tension, you're just sitting there waiting. They let it linger. There's a long stretch of silence before Hikaru responds, and then they're showing that silence is even longer than the physical representation that they gave it, because they're showing you all these ants gathering. Like, the passage of time is like shrinking and condensing at the same time. Oh man, they did this scene so well. I always pictured the entity multicolored, like an oil slick. The red and blue is interesting. The moth dying in the light is a good touch, because the name Hikaru means light. Yeah, I had been wondering how the show was gonna adapt the weird, like, black work and text in the manga when it's showing someone's spiraling thoughts. It's kind of hard to translate that exactly into an animated medium, because if you just had the text snaking around, it would look really kind of silly. But I really like what they did, fading out, showing Yoshiki's eye as we get his internal thoughts. It's a really cool way to play to the strengths of an animation medium. There's a wasp trying to get in my window. The predatory wasp of the Palisades is out to get me. Shout out Sufjan Stevens. Anyway, what was I saying? Okay, a few things. I can't imagine the bravery that it took for Yoshiki to ask that question. That's a huge leap of, I don't know if it's faith or stupidity, but not knowing what Hikaru is. Maybe Yoshiki's thinking, I've gone insane and I'm in a mental hospital somewhere and I think that I'm living my life with Hikaru, even though I saw him dead. Or he's thinking something has come back and replaced Hikaru. No matter which way you slice it, it's a bad miracle, like in Nope. So the fact that he takes that step, now it takes him 6 months to get to that point, but the fact that he even gets there is so brave. And Yoshiki's immediate acceptance of Hikaru as this monster, but also as his friend, is another thing that's very brave. Even though Hikaru just said, I don't want to have to kill you, implying he's capable of killing him, Yoshiki just accepts that. Is that motivated by his own grief and desire for Hikaru to still be around? Yes. Is it also a very brave thing to do? A very kind, compassionate, and human thing to do? Yes. He's extending humanity to this thing that has just revealed to him that it is completely not human and is living in his friend's corpse. And so even if it is motivated by a little bit of selfishness, the fact that Yoshiki is able to accept this thing shows tremendous bravery and kindness on his part. This Yoshiki POV cutting between little scenes of Hikaru feels like a visual novel or a dating sim or something. It's a very fun way to show a memory or a flashback. I don't know if I've seen something like this done before. I wonder why. Hunter x Hunter poster in the corner. I see that. Poor kid. I can't even imagine. Yoshiki has a medication there next to his bed. My first thought was maybe it's antidepressants, but I don't know if that would be the case. It doesn't seem like the adults in his life are the kind that would recognize what he's going through and get him on SSRIs or something. And he doesn't seem like the kind of kid that would be vulnerable enough to seek out help. I know canonically he has stomach issues, so it could be IBS medication. Shout out my fellow IBS havers. But the fact that he keeps it with his phone, like right there next to his bed, tells me it's probably a prescription, probably something he has to take, like every morning or every night. Like, he's dealing with so much already. I know things were tough for me at 15. And the nosy neighbors. For most people, they're having a hard time at age 15. And then your friend dies, and then he comes back, but it's not him, and you have to keep that secret along with all your other secrets. It's tough. This scene with the dad is new. We don't see Yoshiki's dad until like chapter 20 something. We know they don't have a very good relationship, but we don't see it. Like I said earlier, they're trying to front load the first episode with a lot more characters and context so that from the get-go we know where we stand with everybody. A couple sentences exchanged, not even exchanged, a couple sentences from his dad and no response from Yoshiki, and that tells you all you need to know about this family. And I think whoever was in charge of adding these little extra scenes did a really good job of doing scenes that feel in character, sticking with the tone of the story. It's just really well done. There's a couple moments in this episode where he seems a little meaner than manga Yoshiki. And I think that's appropriate. I think that's right. Sometimes he'll just kind of snap at Hikaru, or like he shoulder checks him as he's going out the door. And that feels a little mean-spirited, but it feels right because he's under so much stress. It makes him kind of volatile. It's going to be a long time before he can ever stabilize and make sense of everything that's happening to him. Hikaru and not Hikaru have completely different mannerisms and ways of speaking. Taking off my glasses, I've seen enough. It is no secret that I do not like Tanaka. I think he doesn't fit the story very well, and I don't know the end game of the story, right? It's not done. So maybe he will have some important thing to do at the very end. However, he's annoying as a character, and he feels very disjointed from the rest of the story. Now, part of that could be intentional because this is a very intimate story that deals with a small town, a specific group of people, and he's an outsider. So that could be intentional. But it just feels not right. He feels like he's from a different story. He feels colonizing. And we don't get a lot of context for who he is, why he's here, what he's doing, why he has a hamster with the soul of a human child in it. Hello, what did you do to that child? Why are you stalking these other children? Stay away from these children. So if it were up to me, I would fix the Tanaka problem by cutting him out of the story. I feel like there's a few minor things I could do to get rid of him and keep the story more self-contained without this outsider bursting in. What it seems like the story writers for the adaptation are doing is the opposite. It feels to me like they recognize that he seems very out of place, but they're doing the opposite solution. Whereas I would remove him from the story, it seems like they're trying to integrate him more. That remains to be seen if it will work. I'm still never going to like him as a person, but I am open to my opinion about his role in the story changing. They have to convince me, though. And so far, I'm not convinced. It still feels very much like he is just bursting in here, trampling all over everything, giving no answers, and leaving. And we never get to know what's up with the company, either. My company sent me here. Like, it just feels a little bit lazy. Asako! I love Asako. And Maki. What up? I'm Hikaru, I'm 15, and I never freaking learned how to read. I love it when they actually animate people playing the piano properly. Yeah, this whole scene was added. Tanaka does not get this scene in the manga. Weird contrast, weird juxtaposition of like a choir of kids singing and Tanaka beating a wall to death with a crowbar. But weird contrast is the big part of this story. So it fits the tone. Yeah, then this edition of his conversation with the woman from the company, hundreds of years of searching, it sounds like he or the company or both have been looking for this thing that is coming down and inhabiting Hikaru's body for like forever, and that it's something that they've been aware of and that they've been hunting, instead of just a random occurrence. And I like in the manga that it feels like a just very random occurrence. It's not some big thing that they've been expecting. The fact that he's like looking for the Hikaru entity from the beginning, instead of he was just some weird guy that got called in because somebody knew him and was like, hey, we have a weird situation here. Can you come check it out? So this is an instance where I feel like the attempt to integrate him into the story is backfiring. It almost feels like shoehorning in, I mean, it's not a prophecy, but like we've been expecting this thing, we've been looking for this thing, and now it's here. It just feels a little bit off. Imagine if in the movie The Thing, the reason they were in Antarctica was to look for this specific thing, and then they find it and it starts like eating all of them. That would feel like a very different story, as opposed to they just kind of stumble across it, don't know what's happening, and by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late and they're all being eaten. Looking for something and hunting it down is a very different story from stumbling across a thing and trying to figure out how do we deal with it. So I don't like that change. However, I'm listening and learning. My eyes and my ears are open. And if you're new here, I should let you know that I sound like a complainer. I sound like I'm nitpicking and I don't like things. I want you to know that I tend to pick things apart and look at them from a lot of different angles, and sometimes that sounds really critical when I don't intend to be critical. Like I said, I love this show. I just like to pick at things. So let me live. In the manga, Yoshiki says that aside from when they were little kids, he's never seen Hikaru cry. So it's really strange to see this Hikaru crying often. Here we go with a lovely Ghibli-esque montage and some woodwind instruments. This was when I knew, okay, we got that contrast down pat. Whoever was in charge of this understood the role that contrast plays in the story. Because this beautiful little slice of life scene, beautiful little slice of life scene tells me we're gonna get something weird and creepy and off in a couple of minutes. I like the added touch of making a lot of Hikaru's stuff orange. Like his lanyard and his bike are all orange. He was wearing an orange jacket when he died, and Yoshiki found him. The memory of that was so burned into his mind that he still gets triggered by that color of orange. So the fact that a lot of Hikaru's stuff is that shade of orange, that's rough. That's tough for Yoshiki. There's so much added into this adaptation. Little tiny bits of things that pad it out, not in a fillery way, but just letting it linger. We see for 2 seconds Yoshiki's mom at work and Kaoru at work with her. That tells us that Kaoru is kind of a delinquent and skips school all the time, and that mom tends to not really care and just brings her to work with her. That's stuff we don't really find out until later in the manga, but like the scene with the dad, they're giving us that context up front, and in a very condensed and very natural way. Turns off my TV screen. Ooh. No, I'm gonna say he's way too hard on himself. And the fact that he thinks that he's too permissive and too easy on himself above all people, tells you a lot about what you need to know about Yoshiki. Oh yeah, Mrs. Gosh, I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry, lady. We don't get her until about chapter 4. Her introduction, she doesn't encounter Hikaru at all. She encounters Yoshiki at the grocery store. And the energy that has transferred to Yoshiki, Hikaru's residuals, are so strong that she picks up on it. And she's like, young man, whatever you are doing, whatever you are messing with, you need to stop right now. She doesn't even encounter the Hikaru entity. And just the warning signs from the residuals are enough for her to be like, whoa. I do think it's cool that we get a little introduction of her in this episode, because she does become one of the key players in the story. But this introduction doesn't give us the best picture of just how dangerous the Hikaru entity is, just how much danger Yoshiki and everyone else are in. Her strong reaction to the residuals gives you a little bit of like a power scaling metric to deal with. This doesn't give you that. Although I'm sure we still will get that scene of her encountering Yoshiki in the grocery store. But the fact that she sees Hikaru and knows that there's something up with him from the get-go, again, if you want to establish things right away, you take away a little bit from the mystery. Because there's a lot of people in this story that are like, hey, something's not right. The energy here is whack. But they don't encounter Hikaru directly. And it takes a while for people to realize, like, oh, it's this boy. He's the source of it all. That audio cue is so good. It's so freaky. A lot of the show is about contrast and the conflict within Yoshiki. He's like, this thing is freaky, I don't want it around me, but I want to have Hikaru back. And so there's a lot of panels of just him being overwhelmed by his own thoughts. And that was a really beautiful, eerie, perfect way of doing that. The audio in this show does so much of the heavy lifting, and I love it. Also, this running gag of the Hunter x Hunter ripoff is so funny to me. Ron. My greatest fear is that the show pulls an Uzumaki and gives us a phenomenal first episode, and then the quality drops off sharply after that. But barring that circumstance, I think this show is going to be something really, really special. That took a lot of bravery too. I'm not sure if this show is trying to dial back more of the romance elements or if it's just a matter of the translation. Well, no, because they said Suki. It means like, but it has like a crush connotation. So I don't know if they just didn't have a better translation other than just, do you like me? Yeah, I like you a lot. In the manga, he said, I'm crazy about you. I'm crazy about you isn't really something you say to a friend, right? It has a bent of romance to it. Now, this story is not exactly a romance. However, it's a gay story. You can't take that aspect away from it. We find out as the Hikaru entity learns more about himself, he doesn't really feel feelings like humans do. He's not really capable of romance. However, Yoshiki is gay. He was in love with Hikaru. Those are non-negotiable parts of the story. And I think to try to diminish those aspects or to not acknowledge them, you're not engaging with the story on its own terms. You're not paying attention to what the author was trying to say. I don't know if the English translation is trying to downplay that part or if it was just they didn't really have a better word to go with. But this is a fundamentally gay story. This is a story about a gay kid. The story is just as much about Yoshiki dealing with his own self-hatred and the difficulty of growing up gay in a small, rural, compressed town like this. That's just as much a part of the story as the monster and the horror. To ignore that or downplay it or poke fun at it is to not engage with the story on its own terms. And I think it's very important to have stories that are gay stories without being romances. I'd hate to see what certain types of people are saying about this show. Lucky for me, I don't engage with fandoms anymore. I think the horror of a domestic fight contrasted with the horror of a monstrous home invasion. Just escalating and escalating. Yoshiki is here, caught in the middle of everything. That's so good. That's so creepy. It's so scary. And because I know this manga front to back, I was wondering, will the show be able to actually give me something that's scary? Because I already know everything that's going to happen. And I will admit, I'm already inside the house. Gave me a little bit of a tingle down the back of my neck. So, good job. The sound design is to thank for that. This disgusting, distorted, monstrous sound, and then just a child's voice. Really well done. This song sounds spooky. But then when he turns it up, it sounds more of just like an anime intro or outro. So I wonder if this is going to be one that they use as the opening or ending. Because that's something notably missing from this episode. So I'm sure we'll get one or both next episode. Really fun show. I just hope they can keep this energy up for all 12 episodes. Anyway, this was real fun. It's been a long time since I did a reaction video, so I had to work those old muscles. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week for episode 2.